Welcome back to another episode of Groundwork. This time I'm going to build some scrub bars for my mate Brendan's big green ute right here, and so it's a perfect opportunity to talk about some basic tube bending techniques. So there's a couple of different approaches we can take to a project like this. You know, we can just go in gung-ho, cut a bit of pipe, start bending it where it looks like the bend should go. We might end up with something good. More than likely we're going to end up with something crap, and it's just going to be scrap pipe. So the method that I'm going to be using, it's a real analog method of doing this sort of stuff, but it is actually going to produce really good results in the end. What I'm going to be doing is cutting shorter sections of pipe, bending those bits of pipe to the degrees that I want them to be from looking at the car, and actually joining those together to form a scrub bar template. And then we will use that template to bend the final piece that we're going to be using to glue to the car. The good thing about having that as a template with all our marks and rotations and everything on it is that we're going to be able to use that to form the scrub bar on the other side, and it's just going to be done in reverse. We're going to have two identical scrub bars. The first step in determining this is by setting up this piece here, which will mimic where the pipe's going to be. Now that's going to be able to give us our distance from the paddle. I'm going for about 20 mil, and this is parallel to the guard. I can put this other piece on here to get a real good representation of where that bend's going to be. So now's a good time to talk about spring back. When you're bending the pipe, you always have to overbend it a bit because it is going to spring back. Usually around 2 degrees, but it depends on the material, depends on the temperature of the material that you're bending, depends on a lot of things. You get to learn your machine and the materials that you're using, but around about 2 degrees is a pretty good bet. I've got my trestle here set at the finished height of the scrub bar, so I can use that to transfer that information onto the bull bar so we know where that's going to land. I've just got this little cradle that I made up, and that can clamp to the bull bar and assists us with the setting up. So I've got the first section of the scrub bar there. Now we can move on to the second section, the back side of the wheel arch here. Now we could just do one bend, but they look a bit better, I find, if you do two bends. So we want to find out what this angle is in relation to that top bar there and actually divide that in two. So just zeroed the Wixie out on the scrub bar there. We put our straight edge on here just to get sort of like a prevailing sort of angle. It's a bit of a fudge factor because it is a curve. We put that on there, it's 69 degrees, so we'll just call it 70 degrees. So part of the design brief for these particular scrub bars is that they need to follow the shape and the position of the wheel arch quite closely, because we're going to be incorporating a rubber flare into them, and that needs to be the same size as the wheel arch. So if you can see behind me, I've just run some tape on the guard, and that gives us the position from the peak of the arc to the intersection point, which essentially is this point here. Now I just measured that at 50 mil, so we know that whatever we do with our bends, we want that to be the rough position of where they go. So that's the point of the arc. So as long as we go an equal distance there and an equal distance there, and it passes through that point there, we know that we're going to have an equal size bend that's going to create that 70 degrees. We've got the first of the two bends done. Now we need to know where we're going to put the second one. So what we can do is, on our drawing, we can sit the first bend in the position of the second bend, transfer the grip line to the bench, move it back into its original position, and transfer that grip line to the pipe. The next thing that we need to consider when we're doing bends like this is that we're doing two bends and we want them to be in the same rotational plane. Now there's different ways that you can do this. There's tools that you can get that will locate on the pipe. You don't need that for this particular application. All you need to do is take up a bit of tension on the bender, zero your Wixie on the block, and then zero it in this position in the pipe. That follows the shape pretty well. And now, because this is going to start rotating down following the shape of the guard, we can also set the rotation for these bends. Put a creep mark on there. Now we've got the template to guide us, we can start transferring measurements onto the final piece. So I measured the rotation from the first bend to the second bend on the template and it was 90 degrees. So that basically means that this first bend has to be at 90 degrees to the plane that we're going to bend in. But because we're doing a left and a right mirror images, it means that one's going to be rotated 90 degrees up and one's going to be rotated 90 degrees down. So this one, 90 degrees up. Now because the scrub rail is landing on an irregular part of the bull bar, I can't use a regular side rail clamp. So I'm making use of a 10mm bolt and a nut welded inside the pipe to marry the two together. Another option was to use a roll cage tube clamp, but I didn't want to weld to the bull bar. To find out the location of the last bend that joins the scrub bar to the sliders, I'm using this homemade tool that gives me the grip line position and radius center line. So that's a video on tube bending, in this case pipe bending, and building a set of scrub bars. Real basic sort of project, but can be very rewarding if you do it nicely. You guys hear the ice cream man? Ding, 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 ding. Ooh, let's see, get some coins. Chuck Rocket! So yeah, thanks for watching, thanks to new subscribers, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm gonna mung out on this fucker right now.